This is Coda Radio, episode 146 for March 23rd, 2015. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our two fine sponsors, DigitalOcean and Linux Academy. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this year's show goes on. My name is Chris, and joining us from the East Coast is the always excellent and quite caffeinated Mr. Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Hello, Wisconsin. Oh, I'm sorry,
Wait,
Washington.
What? No, yes. No, you might not know this, but I believe we are actually reaching a global audience these days. It's new.
What?
Yeah. I think they got TCP IP set up across the ocean.
Well, you know how I feel about globalization, Chris. I mean...
It's the end. It's the end.
Yep.
Once you have free access to information and exchange of ideas, everything's going to change. Everything will be different once that happens. Mark my words. Mark my words.
I hate freedom. You know that.
Well, it's all coming like a hose because of information exchange. And that's why today, on the very important 146, everyone knows, I'm sure I don't have to repeat to the audience, but everybody knows that the 146th episode of a show, that's the most important run. That's the lucky number. That's the boom. That's it right there. Yep. Bring the bell, ladies and gentlemen. 146 is here. It's long. It's a production thing. If you're not familiar with it, I'm sure just chalk it off to that. Anyways, to celebrate this milestone of reaching 146 episodes, the most important production episode ever, because it's just a thing, we decided we'd bring on our Mumble Room. So, hey, time-appropriate greetings, Mumble Room, and welcome to the Coda Radio program.
Hello.
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 Hey, guys.
Hello.
So we have Mike has assembled in front of us today a docket of excellent topics that I believe will be in your wheelhouse, as if he had some sort of forethought and some sort of prescient knowledge of your presence. Mike, is that the case?
I had no knowledge. I was actually just channeling Richard Stallman for these topics.
Yeah,
as I often do every Monday morning.
Yeah, we totally forgot to mention it on the last couple of episodes. We were planning to do a call-in episode today because what we are is small-minded and weak-minded. And also, you might say weak constitutions.
You know, it's funny. They're never the droids I'm looking for.
Never.
Ever.
All right.
Like, nope.
We got to start with, we have an email here from Rick H. And Rick H. writes into the Coda Radio program. And he says, Mike, your talk on Coda Radio episode 145 last week, it really struck a nerve with me. I'm rounding out my last year in computer science in my university. Until this date, I still hate coding applications in Java for Android. Scala has helped, but still, it's a pain dealing with all of the XML. Why so much hate for HTML5 applications? Some exciting things are happening in this space. Phones are improving, and so are libraries. I did a talk about Iconic last week here for a code camp, and I might be a little biased as you are towards native development. I would highly suggest you take a look at HTML5 for anyone interested. He has a slideshow about it that he did. Best regards, Rick. So, Mr. Dominic, how dare you?
Yeah, so it's not that much hate, right? It's kind of like the Xamarin thing. I don't necessarily hate Xamarin, except, of course, for I do. And I just feel like the HTML5, at least for mobile, is more for the line of business application, not for your commercial consumer application. That's all. Everything has its, niche.
I'll give you an example of what I think is a small market, something one developer could create and sell to a couple of businesses. And that would make perfect sense as HTML5 over a native application. And let's say you run a clinic and you have booking that you do through your website. And over the last 5 years, you have noticed that now the vast majority of your patients are visiting your website on their phone instead of their computer. And you now are faced with the problem of trying to take your old website and either completely redesign it to be mobile friendly, or just create an Android application, go create an iOS application, publish it in their respective stores, and call it good. That would be ridiculous. That would be such a waste of time. It is so obviously a great application for an HTML5 app that takes care of the web need, because you still have desktop visitors, takes care of the mobile need, and it doesn't have to be like some big enterprise, Oracle-grade application. It could just be something for one doctor at one office. And I think that's a perfect application for HTML5. Does anybody disagree? I mean, because to Mike, I don't know. So you make it sound like HTML5 is only good for large-scale enterprise internal deployments where they don't care if it's VB. It's like the new VB is the way you kind of make it sound, I think.
I don't mean to make it sound like the new VB. I think, I think the scenario you laid out does make sense for HTML5. I guess my point is, I don't think HTML5 is going to eat the world just yet.
Yeah.
If at all.
Maybe a certain category of applications. Mumble Room, anybody have any strong opinions on HTML5? I mean, as a Linux user, I was sort of hoping we'd be a little bit further along at this point.
Well, HTML5 is going to totally be a bigger play than it is now, especially with Ubuntu Touch using HTML5 and Firefox OS using HTML5. And if you build an app, you can have them working on that, and plus Android and iOS. It's definitely going to be
what
a bigger
gives
play
you say you sound you sound so confident in that I almost got to question what gives you that level of confidence, because we haven't seen that really play out yet.
Because one of the things is YouTube's going to HTML5, Netflix is going to HTML5, which provides multiple platforms the ability to use those services.
Okay.
And without having to like, and for example, with Firefox OS and Ubuntu Touch, they don't have the option other than HTML5. So, I mean, Ubuntu Touch does have the option for other things, but having the ability to use Netflix and just much more easily in the future, it's going to be a bigger play than it is now. It's still a very viable option for using your example of a website that needs to have a mobile version, but in the future it's going to be even bigger than that.
PT Dave, what do you think about the idea that it may be in Apple and Google's better interest to not have too many HTML5 applications? Maybe it's better for them to have you sell it through the Play Store.
I kind of feel like anything HTML5 just really doesn't have the backing technology-wise. Like Next or any of the native apps just run so much better, and trying to develop anything on HTML5 right now is just a mess, I feel like.
Right. So it is a bit of a mess. It's still a very movable, flexible space. That's for sure. Moving in flexible space. And I also feel like some of the people that operate these platforms, their actions speak louder than their words, and their actions so far have been to develop pretty kick-ass mobile web browsers. So I got to give both Google, Apple, and even Microsoft credit to that. Their actions so far in this category say that they're okay with web applications. In fact, in Lollipop, I don't even really like it, but like tabs are even now promoted to the level of running applications in your task switcher. I mean, they're pretty all in. But I just got to say, at the end of the day, they make money on apps that sell, and when you do in-app purchases and you put things through the Play Store, that makes you need the Play services, which gives Google power over the OEM, so it is really good for them to have stuff in the Play Store. So you would think that the person that owns the platform, when they have such an incentive around having things in the Play Store, it's not their number one top priority to give web apps the best chance. But so far, it doesn't seem like they've really gone too far to stop it. So that's...
They also have the benefit of wrappers. There's HTML5 wrappers like PhoneGap and stuff like that.
Oh, yes. Benefits. You said benefit? Is that what you said? Benefit?
Benefits for the developer to make it easier for them to do in the HTML5 app, but benefit to Google that it becomes an app in the Play Store.
Yeah, you're right. It's a benefit to the developer, and it's a benefit to Google. That's for sure. That's who it's a benefit to.
I didn't say it's the greatest option. I'm just saying
I guess it's a benefit to PhoneGap too, because they're making money.
Right. Well, I'm just saying there's more than just PhoneGap. There's many wrappers, but the idea that they need something in the Play Store. I mean, the wrappers allow them to have that.
Yeah, that's very true. And you could always.
Question.
What's that?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so if you use HTML5 for mobile applications and so on, so what kind of an app can you even make out of HTML5? So this application would be only some kind of a front end for some kind of a special back end. So you would make something, let's say in PHP on your server, and you will use HTML5 as a front end, and you would just call and render results and functions that you called on the backend, and that's all in general. So you couldn't make an application that uses some kind of a for if loop, sockets, TCP or something more advanced that you would make in a native development language
Right.
for mobile applications using Java or something, or Eclipse or some kind of a IDE, and that's all.
That really seems
There
like
are
the way to go, huh?
APIs.
Yeah, that really is the way. That's the direction of things. Is the HTML5 web application is really a client to the back end, which you could then write any native front end to that back end client or server.
Thank you.
I always feel like there needs to be more of a communication between your front end to the actual browser, so that, say I want to render a specific application window, just a modal window somewhere, maybe it pulls a theme off of my desktop and renders some customizations on top of that, so that everything stays the same.
Yeah, GTK kind of promised that in a way, right? And Mozilla tried to do that too, but it just never really kind of works, does it? It just never seems.
So there is one interesting thing that no one on the HTML5 side brought up. It's something that I've been very interested in recently, using mostly native apps, but rendering certain pages as HTML for the simple reason of if that page might be in flux or it might need to change,
Right.
you just can't afford to wait 2 to 3 weeks for Apple to review it.
Right.
You just can't. You need to be able to get pushed to your Doku instance, hosted on DO, of course.
Of course.
And get that update in. In fact, I recently had to do something like this just because you just can't, right? You can't have something in production that needs to change for whatever reason, and it could be a bug.
Did you hear
it could
about
be a
Uber?
business reason?
So there was an
what's the deal?
iOS developer that he discovered that if he captured the packets being sent from an iOS device running the Uber app, and then he used, I forget the tool, we talked about it in TextNet, but there is an iOS development tool that you use that can intercept SSL encrypted traffic and use a self-signed certificate to decrypt it so you can view the packets to do troubleshooting. And I'm blanking on the name, but we talked about it a few weeks ago. And what
SSL strip.
it might have been that. I thought it had like a cat name, but yeah, like it was a Mac OS 10 like app specifically for doing this kind of work. And he discovered watching the Uber app that if you just send back a few packets with variable equals yes, you unlock a ton of stuff in the app UI where you can change real-time pricing, you can change the menu themes, you can make it more accustomed to a specific region of the world, you can add temporary features, you can even turn on kitty delivery, seriously, cat delivery in the Uber app. Like all of this functionality is all buried inside the Uber app that they remotely turn on by sending flags over the network to the app. So when you launch the app and it's communicating with the server, when the server responds with this parameter equals yes, that feature just shows up in the app automatically. They're not having to go through the App Store every time they want to push a new feature. That's all in there, and they just turn it on remotely, and they can even add stuff. It's crazy. Really impressed. The TextNet explanation of it was really something to be seen. The problem was the way they were implementing it was really not that difficult to turn those features on. So you got to be careful how you do that because users will find that stuff sometimes. And you're right, it is the way because of the App Store problem, because you can't deliver directly to your users.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything else? No. All right. We have another email to get into, but I might just take a moment right here and yeah, this one's about me too, and actually. This kind of fits. This is actually the perfect sponsor right now. Let's go over to linuxacademy.com/coders, everybody. Go there, won't you? Help support the the Linux Academy. Well, you would be supporting Linux Academy. Also the Coder Radio program, but going to that URL, linuxacademy.com/coders. That lets them know you heard about it here on the show. So why Linux Academy? Why would you want to go there? And why is it perfect for you? I'll tell you why. Linux Academy is set up by people that truly understand and know this stuff. They live it. They breathe it. And that makes the difference. That closes the gap. That uncanny valley that all of these other online tutorial sites have where they don't truly eat, breathe, live the material. You get stuck in that, and it's not very satisfying. When you're in the space of somebody who's listening to the Coder Radio program and other Jupiter Broadcasting programs, you can tell the difference between people that are genuinely passionate and knowledgeable about the material. That's what Linux Academy is all about. So with that as their background, they set up tons of courseware on material that are extremely relevant to our audience. You can choose from 7+ Linux distributions. They'll customize the courseware to match those distributions. They have great courseware on the AWS setup as well, so if you need to go get some practical hands-on lab experience with AWS, they got courses on OpenStack and Docker and Vagrant, and of course Android development, Ruby development, Python, all of it. They have so many labs. They're constantly adding new stuff. In fact, I got a note here from Anthony, who operates Linux Academy. He says on April 16th, They're going to do a major content edition, one of their biggest ones yet. They're going to do it live April 16th at 9 p.m. Central. It's coming up pretty soon. And it's really neat to see all the new stuff coming up. The instructor help is really great, too, with the live streams. You can just ask questions right to the educators. And you're always going to see in the community people that are sort of celebrating the next level they've broken in through, either getting a certification or pushing through a new level in Linux Academy. And when you log into their dashboard, everywhere you need to go next is very apparent. It's very clear. These are the next steps. This is how much time I have coming up. Oh, I don't have very much time this week, Linux Academy, so I go in there, I set one of my learning plans. I tell it how much time I have available. It automatically creates courseware to match that availability. Will send me reminders to test up for the quiz. It's really sweet. And I feel like when something new comes out now, I can really go get a hands-on, deep understanding of it. And I really, really like the fact that so much of the content I can take with me when I step away from the computer too, which is really nice. I mean, if you're a podcast listener, you already get the value of kind of being a little more productive where you're out either doing something and listening to something that is of an interest to you, where you can kind of think about it and use sometimes downtime of like doing chores or exercise or walking or driving sort of productively, right? Linux Academy can help you take that even to a whole nother level, and it's worth checking them out. Go over to linuxacademy.com/coders. You get our special Coder Radio discount. Start learning right now, and stick around for their big announcement on the 16th. linuxacademy.com/coders, and a big thanks to Linux Academy for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. You guys kicking butt. So we got a message in from the subreddit from Code Carnage, and he wants an update on my Python journey. He says also a couple of suggestions related. He says it would be good to hear from Brandon Rhodes, perhaps. He's the former member of the Python Software Foundation. Jessica McKellar, the current director of Python Software Foundation. That'd be a great one for Women's Tech Radio. And then he submitted along something that I hadn't even thought of until now. This is super cool. There's also a Puget Sound Python users group that could be of interest. And that I really liked. And he linked it to, there's also one for PyLadies too. So this looks really, really cool. Like something I'm definitely going to be checking out. So an update on my Python status. Well, here's the thing. I took on two things at once at the wrong time. And that was, one, I decided to try to get some of my health stuff figured out because I'm just getting so exhausted at night that it's starting to make it hard to do like the show. Like, well, I really only have one show in the evening, but by the time I get on air to do that show, I'm so tired I can barely do the show. And so my stamina is just way down. And Sundays I'm completely worn out. I'm trying to get my so I'm trying to get my health in order. I've been talking about that on Tech Talk today, if you're curious at all, which you're probably not. But so that was number one job that sort of consumed me more than I thought. And then number two job that I took on, because of the time of year it is Linux Fest Northwest, which just sort of getting all of that together. I hope I'm about to enter a phase where it's not so crazy. Like, I think I just got a lot of the crazy stuff done, and I think now we're getting flights booked, and we're kind of getting to the point where it's lined up, but getting everything lined up so that way, everything was ready to go, and I had to work with the lug up there that's putting the fest on, and just all this. It has been a full-time job getting ready for Linux Fest Northwest. It's going to be our biggest fest ever, and we really go all out. And so that, combined with me also working on my health, but also still trying to keep work and family balance, has meant that I sort of put the Python stuff on hold probably until after April. And then I'll be done with Linux Fest Northwest. I'll have this huge chunk of time freed up, and I can just dedicate some of that to the Python stuff, which I am excited about. So it's not a very exciting update because I realized that if I started it now, I'd be so stressed out that I would be fighting it the whole time. So I thought, you know what, I know myself well enough. I probably should have just said anything on air if I would have really been thinking about Linux Fest Northwest. But, like I stated earlier, I have a weak constitution. I am not a smart man. I have a weak mind, and I forget things quickly. So instead of having like the like I sometimes I watch like these companies and they can make these moves where they're thinking like 3-4 years out, and it's just so impressive. And you're like, wow, they've thought of so much stuff. Meanwhile, I can't even think of the fact that Linux Fest Northwest is coming up. I tell you what, I don't know. I think I want to set up a bug tracker for the network and just get people to submit bugs, so that way I can stop thinking about that stuff too, and then divvy out the stuff. All right, so that was our last bit of feedback coming up. Do anybody want to touch on the Python stuff before I move? I'm not trying to hog the mic because there's nobody speaking up.
I think it's because you really wanted to write Rails, but I'll leave it there.
Oh, I wonder if you're right. You might be right.
I think it's true. You were all on board with Ruby, and your mind got changed, but that's probably not a fun conversation because.
Oh, you might be right though. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
I mean maybe the shifting. I think just the shifting of gears
Yeah.
that just threw off the momentum, and then it's like, well, now there's all the other stuff that came up. Yeah, you're probably right. That hurts. That cuts deep. Cuts deep. I got a little lemon in my water today. It's nice. Hey, do you want to talk about this? I'm not really familiar with this development stuff. You know, this coding, but I hear there's this source that you can open up, and Microsoft just keeps on doing it. And this week they've open sourced the Microsoft Build engine, the build platform for .NET and Visual Studio. Is this a big deal to you, Mike?
Yeah, the fact that they're open sourcing anything is a big deal, right? I mean, if we rewind to the 90s, it's kind of a huge change. I'm not sure that each individual component's going to matter. Having said that, having MSBuild be open source and potentially work cross-platform is going to be great. Certainly, if you're a Xamarin developer, all this open sourcing is only good for you.
Yeah.
The reason being, right, Xamarin doesn't have to blindly re-implement things. They can actually go ahead and start working with the open source version. Why? I wonder, we had a conversation a couple months back about, why is Microsoft doing this? And I don't, other than amazing PR advantages, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Unless the Mumble Room has something, but I do have an awesome segue.
Mumble Room, anything on the topic of Microsoft? Why is Microsoft doing this? Why are they open sourcing these components?
It's a trap.
What do you think, PT?
I think they're just losing, and with as many people that are swapping from Windows to whatever other platform, whether it be Linux, Mac, or else comes out next, it's a chance for them to still exist in all these spaces.
Maybe it's a cost-saving method, as they've cut so many jobs, getting rid of all of that maintenance of old libraries and stuff that isn't really front end.
I actually get the impression they're going to continue working on it. I don't think they're really dialing back too much. I mean, maybe they are a little bit. I don't know. But it sounds like in their statements they're going to continue to develop it.
Interesting.
What do you think, Mike?
I don't think that they're actually not developing it anymore. I do wonder, though, if there isn't a cost part of this. Having said that, most of their layoffs were the Nokia employees they acquired, right? And a lot of their, I don't want to say low level, but non-development personnel, right? A lot of the manufacturing, a lot of the overseas stuff. I wonder if there's not a kind of conversation that's happening about maybe trying to win the hearts and minds of developers. I know I sound like Dick Cheney right now. That's okay.
Maybe, though, because, they've got to be noticing all those MacBooks, right?
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, how many reporters go to a Microsoft conference with their little Apple logos glowing in the darkness, right?
And what do you usually do on your Mac? You load up a lot of open source tool sets. You open up, a lot of, not always. Sometimes a lot of people are using Apple stuff, but a lot of people are using Macs to develop Ruby apps or
Python.
Yeah, a lot.
Node.js, yeah, a lot. I mean, there's certainly more open source developers, I'd imagine, using Mac than actual Cocoa developers. I don't know. I mean, let's ask the Mumble Room. Does it being open source make it more attractive to you, any of the Microsoft stuff, or no?
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Very.
Really?
So maybe that's a reason in itself, right? Because it's yeah.
I wouldn't use Microsoft software, anything that they offer. I would always use something that's open. So open source is the best way to go, I think.
Okay, now is that out of security concern, cost concern, both?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, both. I would say both.
Okay, so there have been a lot of questions, Chris, in the chat room about, Microsoft being in the back pocket of the federal government, right? Certainly open source, particularly in China. I mean, this might be a little tinfoil hat, but certainly open sourcing their tooling might put some Chinese ministers at ease with buying Microsoft.
Interesting. And isn't this an interesting way to allow them to audit the code without actually allowing them to audit the code? So do you remember that 2 weeks ago there was headlines that Apple will be signing a contract with the Chinese government to allow them to audit parts of iOS and OS X source code?
That's absolutely true.
And that got a lot of what the hell? What the hell? You're letting the Chinese peek in? What the hell? A lot of responses like that. Here this way, same thing happens, but it's open source. So they didn't technically set up an agreement and do it. Huh. Though they have done that for Windows source code in the past. It could be this is interesting. There could be several, like all things I always think when you really break it down, Microsoft never really has one or two reasons they do something. They have like 4 or 5 semi-rational reasons that you can tell a committee kind of came up with. Like, that's the same way they do Windows. Like, you start breaking it down, you're like, oh, I could see how one interest group pushed this agenda, another interest group, and then what you get is sort of a average of everything. So this is where we're at. So .NET open sourcing this takes some of the burden off of Microsoft, some of the innovation burden. Let's put it that way. It means less innovation has to come out of Redmond in .NET. It means that those MacBook toting or a Linux toting open source enthusiasts that only want to use an open source tool set or whatever have that available to them. And those governments that are concerned about spying can do the auditing. These are 3 or 4 really solid reasons for Microsoft to do this.
And they're all very good reasons. And I know probably maybe I shouldn't say this, but I don't know how many people in the Mumble Room do follow kind of the .NET community. For the last 2 years or maybe even 3 years, they have been kind of trending that way. A lot more acceptance of open source, a lot more interest. I mean, granted, they keep cloning things that already exist in Rails. So,
Yeah.
But maybe it's just time, right? Maybe this is one of those things that was just bound to happen, but it just for me, this doesn't make me want to use it any more or any less.
Yeah. I think it's always super important that the infrastructure stuff be as open as possible. So but I would really like to see one of their celebrity products. That'd be really fascinating. Not that .NET isn't, but something bigger. It would be really interesting to see. API, did you have something you wanted to add to that before we moved on? I saw you.
No.
Okay, I thought
it's
I saw
okay.
you. All right, so we'll have a link to the Microsoft Build Engine on GitHub. That's crazy.
Right.
That's kind of weird to say that.
Yeah, that's a little freaky.
I think that's the first time I've ever said that out loud.
Yeah, that's kind of a strange thing. So, Chris, I heard about this thing, the Linux Fest Northwest conference.
Yes, sir.
Now, I was going to fly there in my Sputnik.
Of course, right, as you would. And you're not taking the Tesla because of the distance.
Yeah, and I just can't afford a Mercedes, so What is this I hear about a new Sputnik? And I'm wondering if our gray-bearded chat room or Mumble Room has any recommendations, any interest on this. And I would also ask how many of the developers in the Mumble Room are using Linux for their dev machine. And I'd go further. What are you developing? What platform? And what version of Linux are you running?
This. We'll go down the list. Let's do this.
Right down the list.
So, and I just got the new XPS 13. So I could talk about that a little bit, too.
Now, that is not a Sputnik, though.
No, it is not. It is not.
Yeah.
But they do have a Sputnik version of it in the works, my friend.
In the works.
So before we jump into all of that, let's thank DigitalOcean. Head over to DigitalOcean.com. And remember, we have a little bit of love you can share and get yourself a discount. I just recharged my DigitalOcean account today. I love that about it. That's one of the best parts about DigitalOcean is it's super easy to just sort of schedule your payments or fund the account, which is also very nice because I just have a couple extra dollars in my Steam PayPal account. I'll just sometimes throw it in my DigitalOcean account. But we have something even better for you. You can use the promo code CODERDigital and you'll get a $10 credit. CODERDigital means a $10 credit, and that means you can try out some of their rigs for 2 months for absolutely free. Let me tell you a little bit about it. It's pretty exciting. So they are a simple cloud hosting provider dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way to spin up your cloud server. And you get started in less than 55 seconds. And pricing plans start at only $5 a month, right? So boom, we got the $10 credit. You're going to try out the $5 rig 2 months for free. You're going to get 512 megabytes of RAM on that bad boy, 20 gigabyte SSD, solid state, 1 CPU, and a terabyte of transfer for $5 a month. And they have data centers in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, and London. And that interface is so awesome on DigitalOcean. And I know, you're like, Chris, what does it matter how it looks? It matters completely how it looks. Because here's why. I'm sitting here, and Rikai comes in and he says, hey, Chris? I say, yes, Rikai. He says, we need to set up a new server. I say, for the love of God, Rikai, another server? Why do you got to write so much Ruby scripts? And he says, Chris, you want things done around here? And I say, yeah. Then you got to let me do this. I say, okay, I trust in the beard. So I go spin up a Madrapa. But you know why I don't have issues with it? You know why that's all it takes? Because DigitalOcean's interface is so friction-free. And I think that's not the best term in the world, but it actually applies here. It is a friction-free experience. I can get going. I can get a machine set up. I can restore from a snapshot. I can clone. I tell you what, one-click application installs, I'm all about that up in this business. You have to go try out the interface. If you do nothing else with our promo code, use their interface to spin up a server, log into that server, and update the packages. And tell me you didn't just blow your face off, because it'll totally blow your face off. But in a good way, not like the kind where you die. Because you want to keep using DigitalOcean and spin up more droplets. You can be like my co-host Noah. He's got some crazy amount of droplets. They had to extend his account. You'd be like Mr. Dominic. You'd be setting up infrastructure all up in here for your clients using DigitalOcean. I'm using it for my back-end infrastructure for the things we do here, like OwnCloud and BitTorrent, Sync, and all kinds of things I don't even want to tell you about on air. Because you know what I mean. So go over to DigitalOcean. Use the promo code CODERDIGITAL when you check out. Boom! CODERDIGITAL. Going to give you a $10 credit. Try out that $5 rig 2 months for free. CODERDIGITAL. Go over to DigitalOcean.com. And a huge thank you to DigitalOcean for rocking the Coder Radio support. You guys rock. Your tutorials rock. Your one-click applications rock. And that API where I can do all my straightforward integration, that rocks as well. And there's a ton of great community apps around that. Go see why it's such an excellent package. They brought it all together. I'd say it's the trifecta, but they have more than 3 things that are awesome. I don't know what 5 or 6 things that is awesome, like the sixfecta, but that doesn't sound as good. But that's what they got going on. DigitalOcean.com, CoderDigital, $10 credit. That's nuts. That's nuts. I can't even... Server stuff has gotten so much cooler since I stopped doing IT. So much cooler. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about my XPS 13. So I bought my XPS 13. I had to replace the wireless card, but I was really curious to see how Linux did with 4K displays. Really high resolution, high DPI stuff. In short, okay. Definitely has some work to do, but you use the right apps, it's not so bad. And so I would say that these class of laptops now have gotten to the point where they've got enough horsepower you could definitely do some mobile development work. So why don't we start in the mumble room and ask what your guys' rigs are. Anybody that doesn't have a Linux rig, that's fine. You can call that out too. But API will start with you. What's your daily work rig? Go.
Oh, okay, I'm here. So my daily work rig would be at my workplace, and I use a dual monitor setup, Linux Ubuntu 12.04, 4 gigs of RAM, 500 disk space, ext4, and awesome window manager. That would be for
daily
me.
driver? Very nice, very nice.
Yeah.
Bentley. Go ahead, API. Finish.
I'm sorry. At home, I would use a triple monitor setup.
Ooh.
With AMD X25 5600, all the AMD model. I recently updated to Debian 8. Xerox helped me out a little bit, just advising me what to do. I had a Ubuntu 10.10, that old version that's already outdated. 2 discs, 500 gigs, TV card, satellite.
This is like an operations control. You're like monitoring the live feeds.
Yeah, I got 2 Hackintosh machines, 1 server, 1 more rig, older one, also Linux. So I got about 7 LCDs, 7 monitors on my table, so including all the laptops.
Nice.
In general.
Damn.
Yeah.
That is the setup.
Yeah.
I would say
control center, something like that.
Yeah,
like
it sounds
NASA.
like NASA mission control. Bentley, did you want to share your daily setup with us?
Yeah, sure. I can't really beat that. I just have my Lenovo X240 with the i5 low voltage processor. Has 2 batteries, so I get like 5 hours of battery life. And I have 2 SSDs in RAID 0 because I can. And then I'm at university, so about half the time I'm at my desk with my big external monitor, and the other half the time I'm just at random places around campus, wherever is most convenient. And for the software, I have Arch Linux with i3 Window Manager, and I use it for a lot of Python development, and I'm working on learning C right now.
Very good. I like that. That's a good setup. And Mr. PT Dave, do you want to share your setup with us?
Well, at work, got a HP desktop with dual screen setup, and at home, I've got a Dell XPS 17 with dual boot Windows and Ubuntu, and then everything else is just DigitalOcean droplets to testing.
Nice. Very good. You know, Mr. Dominic, what jumps out at me through that rundown there? Nobody has like a blessed like Linux development machine. They were running Linux, but none of them are like a Sputnik edition or a Bonobo. They were all just kind of whatever they wanted.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask. So is anybody, I'm wondering how well are these kind of like System 76 Sputnik editions doing?
I'm gonna
I
buy
know
one.
Go ahead.
I intend to buy one here as my next machine, just as a strict development PC.
Yeah,
Right.
I have a theory. My theory is it takes you a couple of machines before you realize, you know what, next time I'm going to buy one just for Linux. Because like the first time you do it, like I might do this Linux thing. And then like the Linux thing works for you and you're like, but I really like this rig, and you try it and it's almost perfect, but it's like my current XPS 13 where there's just enough little things where like I don't consider it a good product because not everything works well enough. So I would like
Right.
that next time I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to get a laptop that's really meant to run Linux. And then you finally kind of, I think, break down and be like, I'm going to do it. And so I think these products take a little while to take off because the replacement cycle keeps getting longer and longer in these laptops. My theory. I don't know. But I tell you, Mr. Dominic, I notice a big difference.
Interesting. Now, the reason I asked, Chris, is I may be attending an event where I think my little silver MacBook would get chopped up into little pieces somewhere in the Northwest. And I'm possibly looking into perhaps I've been toying with the System 76, the matte screen one forever.
Not the new MacBook with the USB-C connector, huh?
Don't even get me started on that. That's just such a bad idea. Let's pay more for less every time.
And you want something light and small?
I don't care that much.
Because there's
I
that
don't
new
wanna-
Dell Precision M3 800, and also System 76 is about to launch a new like $500 laptop in a couple of days.
Interesting. That might be interesting.
Yeah.
So, what is the deal with Seinfeld? I mean, is there any value in just not going to Best Buy and making sure it has the right chipset, and just buying a laptop there, or buying a normal Dell and just slapping Linux on it? I mean, what are all the hip Linux people doing today?
Well, like I tried that with my XPS, and
Right.
what I ran into was Dell put some sort of wonky Dell-branded Broadcom wireless in there that I probably could have got working if I wanted to fiddle with it, but I want to be able to just nuke and pave my distro whenever I want and don't want to have to fiddle with wireless every single time, so I just replaced the wireless chip. So that was, I feel like, the tax I had to pay by
Sure.
just going off and buying a random machine is that, and also, I still feel like the wireless is a little glitchy sometimes. I don't know quite what it is, and I don't know if it's just because I got such a high-end Intel newer kind of wireless card or what. But
Now, what about Ubuntu Mate? Can I get Mate pre-installed, or I
No.
don't want to do any work, Chris. I've
No.
been using Macs for years
no,
now.
if they usually when they ship Ubuntu, they're going to ship them with Unity by default. But the Mate installation is pretty straightforward. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I know it is difficult. That's and I see. I think I'm back to wanting light and small. 'Cause
Really?
I've had the Bonobo for like 3 years, and that's like as big and heavy as you can get. So now, of course, I'm teeter-tottering all the way to the other extreme, and now I've got the XPS 13, which is like 2 pounds.
Yeah, so because the thing I've been thinking about is my tool chain, other than Xcode, is totally not dependent on actually running Mac, right?
Right. Yeah, that's me too. My basically 95% of my workload doesn't require 90%, and then there's like 10% Final Cut or something that has to do with some Apple codec that I just need a Mac somewhere. So I got the XPS as like my daily commuter, and then I have a Mac that's available in the studio for that other small percent where I need to jump on there and do something. And that thing does other stuff too, so it kind of works out.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. The battery life is, so it's interesting buying like a Dell where they just are apparently, they just lie? I guess.
Yeah, so that's the other. That's what keeps holding me back. One, I don't want to spend a ton of money. Two, I kind of hate PC manufacturers,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to laptops.
Yeah.
Like, I know this is not a particularly Apple-loving crowd, but at least Apple tells you the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, if they
For the
say you're
most
going to
part.
get 8 hours of battery life, if you use Safari and turn the screen brightness to 75%, you will.
Right. You generally get it.
Yeah, I
Like,
was told I would get 15 hours of battery life. I get 6 or 7 hours of battery life. That's a huge difference. And that I even tried it before I formatted Windows. I even tried it under Windows for a couple of times just to see what it would do. And it was the same exact thing under Windows.
Interesting.
Yeah, not 15 hours. 15 hours is my butt. I don't know how they can put 15 hours on their website. That's ridiculous. And it's that kind of crap that I hate. Like, and then you got Lenovo that's installing Superfish and putting all that junk on there. And
well, that's a feature though, Chris. I mean, right?
Yeah.
We want that.
Apparently. PT, if you were going to buy a laptop today, what direction would you go?
Well, I'm going to buy, or I intend to buy one of those System 76, something that has a really strong battery life.
Yeah.
Just because I'm sick and tired of having a huge laptop lugging around, and it's really just going to come down to everything that I'm writing in Go lately, I can do on any platform.
Sure. Yeah, I'm looking over on System 76's Google Plus page right now because they teased. Oh yeah, so they're going to call it the new Lemur. It's 14-inch laptop starting at $599, coming early April. That seems pretty good. It's going to have a 14.4-inch screen. Oh, this is the killer for me though. 1366 by 768 display won't work for me.
Yeah.
4 pounds isn't too bad though. 9 hours of battery life isn't bad. They say when they pushed it hard, they got 6 hours, so that's not bad. Now it's with screen brightness up and all that, they got 6 hours. But again, you're going for a budget. This is a budget machine here,
Right.
and if you're just getting something for travel, that maybe the screen resolution doesn't matter. For me, I think 1080p is kind of my sweet spot, especially on a 14-inch screen. They do have the Ultra Pro that has
I'm looking at the Galago Ultra Pro. I keep coming back to this machine, but it starts at $1049. So that's not cheap, right? I don't know, Chris. I'm not sold.
Yeah, it's a tough call. It is a tough call. What about a Chromebook?
So the issue is I'm going to be there all weekend, and I wonder. I wonder if anybody in the Mumble Room has this. I'm going to be there from Friday to Monday morning or whatever, and I'm obviously going to have to work some in the evenings, and I'm not sure I want to throw my MacBook Pro in the bag just because it is my main and only machine right now. And if something were to happen to it, I would be screwed.
Yeah, I know how that feels.
So, I mean, not that everything's not backed up, but that's a whole. First of all, buying a Mac is, replacing it's not a cheap proposition.
Yeah, even if you had to wait a few days, that's no good.
Right.
I mean, what could you not do on a Chromebook? Really? Have you seen the new 15-inch Acer Chromebook?
Yeah, but I'm not buying a Chromebook. That's just madness.
I'm just saying, it's $349. You get an i5 processor, or I'm sorry, I think it's an i4 processor. IPS display, 4 gigabytes of RAM, 32 gigabyte SSD, 15-inch screen for $349.
You can't do dev on it though. I mean,
Yeah, you can.
what are you going to do? What are you talking about? Like a .cloud IDE deal?
Maybe. You could also use Crouton and put Ubuntu on there, I suppose.
Well, that's true. I don't know how well that works. Has anybody done that?
I don't know about this particular model, but Crouton works well, yeah.
One of the things I've been looking at for my computer science class that I teach is a cloud platform for them to develop C++ or Java on. And one of the things that they haven't quite gotten right is the make files for like C++ for a complete noob. To try to teach that, it's just going to be impossible. But I was testing out Cloud Envy today, and that was working pretty well using Docker containers and everything to get things together.
They say here too that it's big enough, it's strong enough to handle a fall. Durable surface provides premium feel, and they have an anti-glare display. Doesn't strain the eyes. And you know what else you get? Long hours of battery life with it.
So that might be good. I'm checking out what's it? Code Envy, you said?
Yep.
So what exactly are you? I mean, I know it's for a class, but what are we talking about here? Like just C++, or what can you do in there?
Well, I tested out the C++ today. Obviously, you're not going to get anything visual out of it, but if you're building some kind of end out of it, you could do Golang or web development in there, because probably next year, and then teaching C++ as an intro class, which is terrible, might go with Python or something a little more easy.
Like it. I like that. I like Python. That's my new favorite language. It's my favorite language.
This might be interesting. So this might be a $300 Chromebook plus this.
And honestly, it isn't that tough to put Linux on there either. You might not feel motivated right away, but after a couple of months, you could throw it on there. Could be kind of cool, dude. I'm just saying, it might be something to think about. Hey, before we run, I noticed you put a note in the doc about the Ubuntu Software Center. And
Yes.
this is a point of great sadness for me, as you know.
You buried the lead. All right.
What do you think? Where are we at,
well,
Mr. Dominic? Where are we at?
Well, let's ask the mumble room first, because I think I'm going to be a little, yeah.
Mumble Room, any thoughts on the current state of the Ubuntu Software Center? No. No opinion. Nobody uses it in the Mumble Room, do they?
No.
I don't think anybody cares.
Synaptic is my way.
Synaptic, yeah.
Just apt-get Synaptic command line, and that's it. I never used Software Center before. Practically,
So
just never.
The reason I checked the notes was I just kind of took a gander at it the other week on a Linux machine I had spare, just a crappy little MacBook Mini. I threw a rather Mac Mini that I had Ubuntu on. It is looking like a wasteland. I mean, it's looking rough.
A question.
But go ahead.
Okay, Mike.
Yes.
Since you were talking about Apple and so, did you ever try to build a Hackintosh? Maybe.
You know,
So
I
it's
have
much,
actually
it's
never.
much cheaper. It's much cheaper.
Yeah, I have never actually tried that. Part of the reason I'm interested in perhaps getting a Linux machine, a real Linux machine, is that I'm not super in love with the Mac as a workstation anymore. If it weren't for doing Cocoa development, I probably wouldn't be using it.
Is it Yosemite that did it for you? What did it for you?
Yeah, Yosemite was kind of a bridge too far. I don't like the UI. It's very childlike to me.
And the performance is not so good.
Yeah, I'm having some. I've read the posts that people are posting about the performance issues. I haven't seen anything that dramatic, but I have seen little sputtering here and there.
Yeah. I think some of the extra transparency sort of slowed things down.
I mean, my compile times increased quite a lot, so that's not good. Considering I'm compiling what are basically relatively small mobile apps, right?
Right.
I mean, everything's on the server basically. They're dumb clients. But to answer your question, I don't know what the allure is for me. I used to be a Linux user, but it was so long ago that I would basically be a noob if I opened it up again for any serious length of time. I just feel like, despite what I say sometimes, I do think things are going in a one direction. Yeah, there's that too. You could just do that.
So I agree, and I think and unfortunately, what we got wrong was thinking that the Ubuntu Software Center was ever going to be a solution. I think that was always the wrong bet. And looking back at it now, I'm starting to see maybe what the right bets are. So there's a couple of things underway that have me kind of excited. One that I just installed on my Arch box here. In fact, I don't think I've ever run this on Arch before. It's called GNOME Software Center. And this is an initiative by the GNOME Software Project to make a universal app store across all distributions. It uses some underlying technology called PackageKit that allows it to use whatever the native package manager is on that distribution, and GNOME Software Center sits on top of that. And so it's very early days, but they've already begun. Like here's Gary in the GNOME Software Center. Of course, it's not apparently working very well with my theme. And I actually find it to be, when it's working correctly, the discovery it's easier to use than the Ubuntu Software Center. So that's one way that might take off. Right now it's only free stuff. But I'm also still a big believer that something like Steam could start selling commercial Linux applications relatively quickly and become a pretty easy way, and they could use that same Steam runtime that they use for game manufacturers. Developers could depend on that as well, and then you also solve the distro portability issue at the same time. And I think Valve's going to do that at some point. I just don't think it's on the top of their list right now. They already have some games in there. I know, I should use Numix Frost. I really need to switch back my themes. You're right, Imacon. You're right. So I think maybe why it seems kind of like a lost thing was because we bet on the wrong horse.
Mm-hmm.
I know it hurts.
It does hurt.
It does hurt because you really wanted an easy way to be able to make something for that platform and have an obvious entrance to return, and an obvious way to get your return on investment. I mean, yeah.
Where does that leave us? But a little sad.
Just a little bit.
Always.
Just a little bit. But here, okay. So I'm changing. I don't like my icons. Hold on. I got to go back to. Let's go to Numix Square. Yeah. All right. So I've changed my theme. We'll see if I can now launch the Software Center so you can see it. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll see how this looks. So now I'll go into Geary. Yeah. And so here's the Geary screen. And this one doesn't have any screenshots, but some of them do. Here's all the information. I can install it right from here. Here's Stellarium. Again, it's simple, but it's very fast. And they have it filled out with actually decent applications, and it works across different distros. You can use this on Ubuntu, you could use this on Fedora or Arch. So they'll get there, Mr. Dominic. They're going to get there. Just don't you worry about it. And Ubuntu will take another run, I think, at the Software Center in the future. I don't think they're done, but I think they're just waiting for their whole mobile platform to kind of sort itself out. Anybody, Corky, you haven't really had a chance to comment in on this section very much. Anybody have any thoughts on selling software through some kind of store on Linux and what might be the eventual successful way to do it? No? Okay. I know it's a complicated question. Yeah.
Isn't there already enough software that's just not even a video game on the Steam? I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat room talking.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there's more and more, huh?
So it just seems like that's it. If you're going to bet on a store, why not just on the Steam store? Yeah.
Steam will do it, and then the free stuff will go through like the GNOME Software Center and stuff like that, or things like it, the Qt equivalent or whatever. And some distros will just opt to maintain their own, like Deepin and Ubuntu, I think. All right, good stuff. Well, and you know what? Next time we do a Mumble too. Thanks to API and Bentley and Corky and PT for stopping by, and Rotten Corpse also for popping in from time to time, and Spartacus, who's up in there in the join queue as we're about to leave, and a few others who stopped in during the show and left. It was good to talk to you, and next time we'll try to get better about making a little pre-announcement. It was fun to have a little extra input, though, from the Mumble Room, so thanks for joining us. Mr. Dominic, is there anything else we want to touch on today?
No, I think we're good today. Again, my face?
Yeah. Why not?
We could touch my face. That would be
it's
good.
just your face. Well, I'm excited to see what happens in regards to your quest to get the perfect machine for Linux Fest Northwest. I'm sure nothing but success will come your way. And I'm excited that you're going to be at Linux Fest Northwest.
I am. I'm going to be there. Black turtleneck and jeans. That's how I'm going.
A black turtleneck and jeans. But wait, people might think, I don't know if that's a good idea, Mr. Dominic, but we'll see if you survive. We'll see. We'd love to have you join us live. Go over to jblive.tv on a Monday. Go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar to get that converted to your local time zone. Don't forget you can email us. Go over to the contact page on our website and choose Coder Radio from the drop-down, or go to our subreddit, coderradio.reddit.com. It's a great place to go. Mr. Dominic, is there anywhere you'd like to send folks throughout the week?
Just dominicm.com.
dominicm.com sounds like a fine place. Follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/ChrisLAS. All right, everybody, thanks so much for this week's episode of Coder Radio. We'll see you right back here next week.